Well, I've got an interesting one here. I've got a sumac tree that fell down and hit this car, this Honda, impacted it pretty good in the front. And if you look at the foliage on the tree, it looks very, very healthy. It's not showing signs of loss of foliage. It looks very much like just about any other sumac. Similar to the one over on the side over here. Maybe a little bit yellower, maybe a little bit thinner. But had I looked at the tree, I don't believe I would have suspected that the base of the tree was as rotted as it is. Let's take a look at this a little closer. What we've got here is we've got root rot all the way through. I can see some white strands in there. I'm not certain if this species is susceptible to armillaria, but it does show some white rot down in through there. You look close in there, there's quite a bit of decay, but there's also a lot of healthy tissue. This does look like a very big girdled root. You can see how it's bending back on itself. Oftentimes during the initial planting, you'll have a tree that was too large in the pot, and as the roots girdle, it sets itself that way, and throughout the life of the tree it continues to sort of pinch itself off and create a weaker footprint. And as you can see, there really aren't any outside buttress roots on this tree, so it whilst it was growing bigger and bigger, it didn't develop a very strong root system, and there is quite a bit of root decay here. So consequently, the tree failed. Okay, the first thing I did was get all the weight off of all the limbs, and I left all the contact points intact. I didn't move anything. And my goal now is not to cause further damage. So the idea that I have in mind here, it's resting almost entirely on the edge of the car here, but there are a few roots still intact, so I don't imagine this side is going to come up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of wood right here, which is substantial. I'm going to cut it from the back side, I'm going to pull it back towards me and break it off, and then I'm going to use that as a prop. I'm going to measure it and cut it, and I'm going to put it right down here near the front of the car and wedge it in and pound it in such a way that it lifts the weight up off the car. Then I can carefully take all the pieces off and not do any further damage. Now what I've got is a situation where I've got three solid points of contact. I've got this, this, and this over here. And then I've got a scraper on the other side which will continue to cause damage to the door. So my concept here, aside from getting an expensive crane in here to lift this all off in one piece, I want to utilize this piece of wood that I've cut off down here. I cut it from right here, I cut a back cut, and then I pulled it back on itself so it wouldn't cause any further damage. I've been slowly reducing the pressure on this car. Every piece of weight makes it lighter and lighter. So the last thing I want to do now is take that piece of wood and cut it in such a way that I can pound it in, and it'll pull itself in and take all the pressure off of this car, and then I can take each of these off. If I was to start cutting one, then it would exert more pressure over there or more pressure over here. It could easily break a window, or this piece right here. I'm concerned about this one. This really hasn't done much damage yet, but I can't cut it out of there. And I did start cutting this to reduce the leverage, and then I realized that there's a skylight in here. I didn't even see that because it was all covered with foliage, so I stopped. So at this point I have to lift, because the last thing I want to do is shatter that skylight. So it is a little bit of backyard engineering here, but I've done it many times and it does work. So let me grab something to pound that in place. Now from this perspective, I cut this really close, and the top I made it at a slight angle, so when I scoot it in place I should be able to tap it in, and that wedging effect will slowly lift the pressure off the car. I'm going to assume that all the roots on this side of the tree are still intact, and that'll keep that from lifting up, so all the pressure should be exerted right here. And I want to get that off, but most importantly I don't want to shatter that piece of glass up here. All the weight is on it. And here's that slider that went down. And I can lift it a little bit, but I don't want to do it that way. Okay, I wasn't able to lift it up. It's got too much pressure, but I was able to maintain the weight. Kind of moved in and out because it's a rough bark piece of wood in there. But the last one seated itself in there quite well. So now I'm going to go ahead and just cut off all these pieces off of the roof in such a way I'll take one piece at a time. I'll start with this one over here and get it out of the way, get this whole thing off. Then I'm going to go on the back side. I'll make an undercut further up, keeping my weight pulling up on that piece so that it doesn't break through the skylight. Once I get these two off, then I'll get the last one, and then finally I'll come down here and I'll do an undercut and lift it up this way. Alright, I got all the weight off of it. Now everything is being pressed right on here. So if I do an undercut right here, this is going to support the weight of the log, so it's not going to come down and break the tail or the turn signal light here. And I should be able to get this whole thing up and off. It's pretty heavy, so I got to undercut it all the way up. Safety glasses. I'm going to leave this last little bit intact here, and I'm going to break it off of there, because that gives me a little bit of, keeps it from slipping back into the car. But this is a heavy piece of wood. It's probably 100 and something pounds. Oh yeah, easy 100 pounds. Amazingly, there's only one little dent in the car. And this kept it from going any further. The last cut I'll make will be also another undercut up here, and I'll pull this off so it can't fall on the edge of the car. Here's the dent on this side. Scrape over here. Nothing over here. There's scratches all over the car, which I don't think they were part of the tree branch. Now this is probably the worst dent over on this side. Curled this up, and oh, there's a dent right over here, and nothing additional on this side. The glass is all intact. The hood, amazingly, is in pretty good shape, with the exception of this one little thing down here. And it did knock off the mirror. So when we do these emergency removals, whether it's on a building or whether it's on a car or any kind of a structure, you want to be able to do it in such a way that you're going to minimize the damage and not add to the damage. I could have very easily broken a window here or caused more of the tree to fall down on top of it. It didn't take a whole lot of extra effort to think about how to prop the tree or how to protect it, but it did prevent the car from being further damaged.